Shalom Yasharala Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give Kal Halal La Yahweh, Bahasham Hamashiach Yahweh Shai. That is to say, all praise to Yahweh in the name of the anointed Yahweh Shai. Yahweh being the name of the Heavenly Father, Yahweh Shai being the name of the man that the world ignorantly calls Jesus. First of all, I want to say Salakia, that I'm a day late with my Breakdown Friday. So it's Breakdown Saturday really, but it's still going to be titled Breakdown Friday. Yesterday was a little bit busy, so just doing it today instead. And also Salakia, if there's a lot of noise, some Edomites next door who are out on the driveway doing stuff, listening to rubbish music, talking, throwing stuff around, making noise. So Salakia if there's any background noise. So we're going to get into Daniel chapter 8, which is a fire chapter. And an important chapter too, because it really, it's one of them chapters that reveals that this Bible is the truth. That that prophecy, if you think about when the book of Daniel was written, and the things that it prophesied to happen that actually historically took place, you can't deny the Bible. You can't. But it's things like this that I wish I could, my sister was more ready to hear. People like my sister, because my sister struggles with the Bible. She thinks it's a fairy tale book. And it's one of them where you try and teach her, no, look, I can show you stuff. And she's like, I don't want to hear it. Well, you don't want to hear it, but it's there. It's the truth, and it speaks for itself. If you heard it, that's the end of. But it's one of them where I just don't want to deal with it. But this is one of them chapters, prophetically, that just proves the Bible without a shadow of a doubt. Because how would Daniel manage to get these things right if he was guessing? Anyway, I'm going to bring out that opposite, Salakia, going to bring out the opening precepts. So we've got Proverbs chapter 25 verse 2. It is the glory of God to conceal a thing, but the honor of kings is to search out a matter. So God's glory is to conceal these things, and it's our honor as kings to search it out, to understand what the book of Daniel is going into. Because it does give you the breakdown in the Salakia, to understand what Daniel chapter 8 is going into. It's our honor to search that out, because the chapter does give you the breakdown, but there's more to it. It's a little bit deeper than that, and you can go precept upon precept. And when you put it all together, like I say, it just shows that the Bible through prophecy is the truth. When you think about when the book of Daniel was written, compared to the things that took place historically that he prophesied would happen. And it's not even just chapter 8 that does that, but it's one of them fire chapters. So it's our honor to search these things out, right? Next, I'm going to get Deuteronomy chapter 29, verse 29. So the book of Deuteronomy chapter 29, verse 29. It says, the secret things belong unto the Lord our God, but those things which are revealed belong unto us and to our children forever, that we may do all the words of this law. So, the secret things belong to the Lord, right? And it was his glory to conceal those secret things and to make them secret. But the revealing of it belongs to us. He reveals it to us and we reveal it to our children, and it's part of our heritage to pass that down, right? So even in the book of Daniel, it belongs to us, the breakdown. Doesn't belong to Christianity, doesn't belong to Judaism, doesn't belong to Islam. It belongs to us, okay? It doesn't belong to Mormonism. It belongs to us, right? It's ours. It's ours. This book is ours. Yeah, the secrets in this book belong to the Most High, but he gave this book to us, right? So, without further ado, this is Daniel chapter 8, starting at the top. It says, in the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, a vision appeared unto me, even unto me Daniel, after that which appeared unto me at the first. And I saw in a vision, and it came to pass, when I saw, that I was at Shushan in the palace, which is in the province of Elam, and I saw in a vision, and I was by the river of Ulal. Then I lifted up mine eyes, and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram, which had 2 horns. Now, the first thing to understand here, the first thing to understand here is what horns represent in the Bible. A lot of times, horns tend to represent power, right? Power structures. When it says he will lift up a horn of salvation in Israel, that's Christ. He's that power, right? So in this context, this is talking about 2 horns. It's 2 powers, right? This is 2 different powers. It says, and the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. So there's 2 power structures that were both high, meaning they were both very powerful, but one was higher than the other, right? This is because the Persian Empire, it was the Persian and Medes, right? The Persians and Medes, it was two people. But what you will find is when two different peoples rule together, there's always going to be naturally one will float to the top, right? One will subdue and have dominion over the other. It's just the way it goes. They can't equally rule. One will float to the top, right? And that's what happened with the Persians and Medes, right? They ruled together, but the Persians were stronger. They ruled over. They were mightier, right? That's why this one horn was higher. It was more powerful, right? Verse 4, I saw the ram pushing westward and northward and southward, so that no beast might stand before him, neither was there any that could deliver out of his hand, but he did according to his will and became great. So this ram was pushing westward, northward, and southward. That is the expansion of the Persian Empire. I'll put an image here. That's the expansion of the Persian Empire, right? He headed towards the Holy Land, down into Egypt, and kind of up a bit. That's the expansion of the Persian Empire, right? And as I was considering, behold, an he-goat came from the west on the face of the whole earth and touched not the ground, okay? And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes, right? So, a he-goat came from the west. This is the Greek Empire, right? This is the Grecians coming from the west. Do I have an image for that? Well, I'll show it now, I think. So, he was coming from the west and expanding that way, right? Expanding towards the east. Heading from Greece over towards the Persians, right? And expanding that way. And whereas it says he had a notable horn, right? A notable horn between his eyes, that was King Alexander, right? Alexander the Greek. I don't call him Alexander the Great. That was Alexander the Greek, right? He was that notable horn, that notable power structure that came with the Greek Empire, right? And it says, interestingly, it says, and he came from the west on the face of the whole earth and touched not the ground. What this is in reference to, and touched not the ground, seems very random, but it's in reference to how quick it was. It was moving so fast. If you imagine someone running, yeah, they're running and they run so fast that one stride is just like, ooh, like they don't even need to touch the ground. They just take a stride and then they just propel. They're going so quick like they're going so quickly that between strides, between their feet touching the ground, they just cover great distance because they're moving that quickly. That's what this is in reference to, because Alexander's campaign was only 11 years, right? He did his campaign in 11 years. In ancient warfare, that is astronomical. That is insane. That's out of this world, right? 11 years. I'll put a screenshot here. 11 years. That is so quick. That is such a quick campaign that this man did, right? Not by his own power, of course. But that's what it's in reference to. He moved so quick. It was staggering, right? It says, verse 6, and he came to the ram that had two horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran into him in the fury of his power. And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler against him, which means anger against him, and smote the ram and brake his two horns. And there was no power in the ram to stand before him, but he cast him down to the ground and stamped upon him, and there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. This is the Grecians under Alexander destroying the Persians and Medes, destroying their kingdom, destroying their empire, right? Defeating them, right? And they had no power against it, right? This verse 8, therefore the he-goat waxed very great, and when he was strong, the great horn was broken, and it came up four notable ones toward the four winds of heaven. So this is, let's see if I remember that. So Alexander had four servants who he divided his kingdom with when he died, right? And they split it into four. You had the Ptolemy, right? You had the Seleucids, you had the Cassander, and there was there was another one. But I'll put the screenshot here, and you'll see the four kingdoms there. So that's what that is. That's when it says the great horn was broken. So that's Alexander dying, and for it came up four notable ones toward the four winds of heaven. Right, so they went in all four directions. And out of one of them came forth a little horn, which waxed exceeding great toward the south and toward the east and toward the pleasant land. This little horn that waxed great out of the Seleucid Empire, right? The Seleucid Kingdom. If you look at the screenshot, how he took over everything when it said that he went toward the south and toward the east and toward the pleasant land. So he pushed south into Egypt, east, and toward the pleasant land, right? Towards Israel. Right, so this is Antiochus out of the Seleucid Empire. Antiochus Epiphanes. I can't remember the etymology of the word Epiphanes. But even that is in reference to how he thought he was a god. Lord willing, I'll put a screenshot to show that right here. That was in reference to how he thought he was a god still. Like, this man really was prideful, and we're going to read all about that as we get into it. Right, this man was so prideful. Even the name that he had, Epiphanes, was part of his pride, right? It says, and verse 10, and it waxed great even to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the host and of the stars to the ground, and stamped upon them. Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. Right? We're going to read about this in Maccabees. We're going to read about this, how he cast down the sanctuary, right? Defiled the temple, right? He stopped us being able to do sacrifice, right? That's what it says. He magnified himself. It means he's prideful. He was being prideful, right? He thought so highly of himself. It says, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. Right, so he defiled the temple, cast it down, and he stopped us from being able to do sacrifice. And we're going to read all about that. Right? That's how you know it's Antiochus. And an host was given him against the daily sacrifice by reason of transgression, and it cast down the truth to the ground, and it practiced and prospered. Cast down the truth. What is the truth? Let's have a look. What is the truth? Psalm chapter 119, verse 142. Thy righteousness is an everlasting righteousness, and thy law is the truth. So what did he do? He cast the law down to the ground. And we're going to read all about it in 1 Maccabees when we get there. He cast the law down to the ground, right? Verse 13. Then I heard one saint speaking, and another saint said unto that certain saint which spake, how long shall be the vision concerning the daily sacrifice and the transgression of desolation, to give both the sanctuary and the host to be trodden under foot? And he said unto me, unto 2,300 days, then shall the sanctuary be cleansed. Now, one thing that's important to understand here is it's figurative. It's not actually talking about literally 2,300 days. We're not going to get into that breakdown, but it's figurative. It's not actually talking about 2,000 days and then it's figurative, right? Just like how one day is 1,000 years with the Lord, it's the same way how, like, sometimes, I'm trying to think of another example in the Bible. There's plenty of examples where days really mean years or months or this and that. But we're not going to get into that. We're dealing with Antiochus right now. Verse 15. And it came to pass, when even I, Daniel, had seen the vision and sought for the meaning, then behold, there stood before me as the appearance of a man. And I heard a man's voice between the banks of Ulal, which called and said, Gabriel, make this man to understand the vision. So the angel Gabriel is about to make Daniel understand the vision. It says, so he came near where I stood, And when he came, I was afraid, and fell upon my face. But he said unto me, Understand, O son of man, for at the time of the end shall be the vision, right? It says, Now as he was speaking with me, I was in a deep sleep on my face toward the ground. But he touched me and set me upright. And he said, Behold, I will make thee know what shall be in the last end of the indignation, for at the time appointed the end shall be. The ram which thou sawest having 2 horns are the kings of Media and Persia, right? So just like I was saying, it's the Persians and the Medes. The Persians were more powerful than the Medes, so they were the higher horn, right? Verse 21, and the rough goat is the king of Grecia, and the great horn that is between and the great horn that is between his eyes is the first king. The first king of Grecia was Alexander the Greek, right? Now that being broken, whereas 4 stood up for it, 4 kingdoms shall stand up out of the nation, but not in his power. And in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. So this is those 4 kingdoms, right? The Seleucids, Ptolemy, Cassander, and the other one, I forget. That's these 4 kingdoms, but there's going to be, what did it say? He said, and in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up. Salakia. This is King Antiochus Epiphanes, right? Standing up with fierce countenance. He's a fierce countenance. I mean, he's a nasty, horrible man, right? Very fierce and merciless, right? Verse 24, and his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. And he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper and practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. So a couple of things here. It's not by his own power. He thinks it's his own power, but the Most High is the one that raised him up, right? And we're going to read about how he was raised up and destroyed in his pride, but he thinks it's his own power. It's not by his own power. But it said he shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. Who is the holy people? Israel. It said he would destroy us, right? And through his policy as in like a law, right? And through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, right? That's him being prideful, thinking he's something great. And by peace shall destroy many. By peace shall destroy many. To some people that sounds, how do you destroy someone by peace? This means that he's going to promise peace, but he's lying, right? Let me get Psalms. You know where I'm going. It's a classic. Let me get Psalms. So I can just bear with me a moment. Psalms chapter 55 verse 20. This is not talking about Antiochus individually. This is talking about the Edomites in general, right? It says, he hath put forth his hands against such as be at peace with him. He hath broken his covenant. The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, yet were they drawn swords, right? So, the same spirit that Antiochus was moving in, where he was using nice words and promising peace, but he's actually had war in his heart, and it was planning to destroy us. The same thing that they did with the Native Americans. They said he has broken his covenant. A covenant is an agreement, right? A treaty. They used to make peace treaties with the Native Americans, then break them. Right? It's the same spirit that these Edomites have. We're jumping back to Daniel chapter 8. Verse 25, and through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. He shall also stand up against the prince of princes, but he shall be broken without hand. That broken without hand is in reference to how he died, and we're going to get into that. You're going to see how he's broken without hands, and nobody killed him, nobody put their hand to him, right? And we're going to see that. Salakia. And the vision of the evening and the morning, which was told, is true. Wherefore shut thou up the vision, for it shall be for many days. And I, Daniel, fainted and was sick certain days. Afterward I rose up and did the king's business, and I was astonished at the vision, but none understood it. So no one understood the vision, but Daniel was astonished at it, right? Let's go to the mighty book of First Maccabees, chapter 1. First Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 1. No. That's Second Maccabees for starters. Salakia. First Maccabees, chapter 1, verse 1. And it happened after that Alexander, son of Philip the Macedonian, who came out of the land of Chetim, had smitten Darius, king of the Persians and Medes, that he reigned in his stead the first over Greece. So that's fulfilling what we read in Daniel. The first king who smote the Persians and Medes, right? So that's fulfilling what we read. And made many wars and won many strongholds and slew the kings of the earth, and went through to the ends of the earth, and took spoils of many nations, insomuch that the earth was quiet before him, whereupon he was exalted, and his heart was lifted up. Which means that he was prideful and he thought very highly of himself, right? His heart was lifted up. His mind was lifted up. He started thinking that he was something special, something amazing, right? That's why they called him Alexander the Great, right? It says, and he gathered a mighty strong host and ruled over countries and nations and kings who became tributaries unto him, which means they paid tax to him. And after these things he fell sick and perceived that he should die. Wherefore he called his servants, such as were honorable and had been brought up with him from his youth, and parted his kingdom among them while he was yet alive. So that's him giving these that's the notable horn being broken, which is him dying, and giving his kingdom to the 4 other horns that rise up, right? It says so Alexander reigned 12 years and then died, and his servants bare rule, every one in his place. And after his death they all put crowns upon themselves. So did their sons after them many years, and evils were multiplied in the earth, as in they were doing so much wickedness. And there came out of them a wicked root, Antiochus, surnamed Epiphanes, son of Antiochus the king, who had been an hostage at Rome, and he reigned in the 137th year of the kingdom of the Greeks. In those days went there out of Israel wicked men, who persuaded many, saying, Let us go and make a covenant with the heathen that are round about us. For since we departed from them, we have had much sorrow. So this device pleased them well. Then certain of the people were so forward herein, that they went to the king, right, King Antiochus, who gave them license to do after the ordinances of the heathen. Whereupon they built a place of exercise at Jerusalem according to the customs of the heathen. Salakia. I'll put the etymology of the word gymnasium, but this place of exercise was a gymnasium, which is not the gymnasiums we have today. This gymnasium, well, like you see from the etymology, this is where they would go to exercise naked, right? That's what it literally means. This is where they would go and be freaky. They would probably wrestle, down lifting weight. Everyone would do it naked. This was a Greek thing, and our people were down for it, right? It's sickening, right? Verse 15, and made themselves uncircumcised, and forsook the holy covenant, and joined themselves to the heathen, and were sold to do mischief. Now when the kingdom was established before Antiochus, he thought to reign over Egypt, that he might have the dominion of 2 realms. Wherefore he entered into Egypt with a great multitude, with chariots and elephants and horsemen, and a great navy, and made war against Ptolemy, king of Egypt. But Ptolemy was afraid of him, and fled, and many were wounded to death. Thus they got the strong cities in the land of Egypt, and he took the spoils thereof, right? That's him moving to the south, right? And after that, Antiochus had smitten Egypt. He returned in the 143rd year, and went up against Israel and Jerusalem with a great multitude, right? So this is him going towards the Holy Land, right? And entered proudly into the sanctuary, and took away the golden altar, and the candlestick of light, and all the vessels thereof, and the table of the shewbread, and the pouring vessels, and the vials, and the censers of gold, and the veil, and the crowns, and the golden ornaments that were before the temple, all which he pulled off, right? He took also the silver, and the gold, and the precious vessels. Also he took the hidden treasures which he found, right? Let me go back to Daniel chapter 8. We've got to relay this, right? Daniel chapter 8, verse 23. And in the latter time of their kingdom, when the transgressors are come to the full, a king of fierce countenance and understanding dark sentences shall stand up, and his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power. And he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper and practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. Right? And through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. He shall also... Salaki, what does it say about the sanctuary? Say about the sanctuary. We just read this. Oh, can't. Salakia. Verse 8. Therefore the he-goat waxed very great, so that's Greece becoming great. And when he was strong, the great horn was broken, Alexander dying. And for it came up 4 notable ones toward the 4 winds of heaven, that's the 4 kingdoms. And out of one of them came forth a little horn. This is Antiochus coming out of the Seleucid Empire, which waxed exceeding great toward the south and toward the east, right, towards Egypt, and towards the east, and toward the pleasant land, right, towards Israel. And it waxed great even to the host of heaven, and it cast down some of the host and of the stars to the ground, and stamped upon them. Yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down. See that? The place of sanctuary was cast down. That's what we just read. That's what we just read. He entered proudly. Let me get it again. 1 Maccabees chapter 1, verse 21. And entered proudly into the sanctuary, and took away the golden altar, and the candlestick of light, and all the vessels thereof. Right? So this is him casting down the sanctuary, right? Verse 24. And when he had taken all away, he went into his own land, having made a great massacre, and spoken very proudly, right? That's him magnifying himself. Therefore there was a great mourning in Israel, in every place where they were, so that the princes and elders mourned, the virgins and young men were made feeble, and the beauty of women was changed. Every bridegroom took up lamentation, and she that sat in the marriage chamber was in heaviness. The land also was moved for the inhabitants thereof, and all the house of Jacob was covered with confusion. And after 2 years fully expired, the king sent his chief collector of tribute unto the cities of Judah, who came unto Jerusalem with a great multitude, and spake peaceable words unto them, but all was deceit. For when they had given him credence, he fell suddenly upon the city, and smote it very sore, and destroyed much people of Israel. Just like we read in Psalm chapter 55, he's put forth his hand against such as be at peace with him, broken his covenants, words which smoother than butter, they were drawn swords, he had war in his heart. This is all of that being fulfilled here. But it's also Daniel chapter 8, verse 24, and his power shall be mighty, but not by his own power, and he shall destroy wonderfully, and shall prosper and practice, and shall destroy the mighty and the holy people. Salakia. Verse 25, and through his policy also he shall cause craft to prosper in his hand, and he shall magnify himself in his heart, and by peace shall destroy many. That's what it means by peace shall destroy many. This is him, right? We'll go back to it. 1 Maccabees chapter 1, verse 30, and spake peaceable words unto them, but all was deceit. For when they had given him credence, he fell suddenly upon the city, and smote it very sore, and destroyed much people of Israel. So this is him speaking those peaceable words and destroying them by peace. You might think, how can you destroy someone by peace? This is how you do it. He speaks these peaceable words, and then he destroys us, right? Verse 31. And when he had taken the spoils of the city, he set it on fire, and pulled down the houses and walls thereof on every side. But the women and children took their captive, and possessed the cattle. Then builded they the city of David with a great and strong wall, and with mighty towers, and made it a stronghold for them. And they put therein a sinful nation, wicked men, and fortified themselves therein. They stored it also with armor and victuals, and when they had gathered together the spoils of Jerusalem, they laid them up there, and so they became a sore snare. For it was a place to lie in wait against the sanctuary, and an evil adversary to Israel. Thus they shed innocent blood on every side of the sanctuary and defiled it, insomuch that the inhabitants of Jerusalem fled because of them, whereupon the city was made an habitation of strangers and became strange to those that were born in her, and her own children left her. Right? So this is him fortifying the city of David and filling it with heathens, right? And fortifying it and turning it into a stronghold for them, not for us, right? It says, verse 39, her sanctuary was laid waste like a wilderness. Her feasts were turned into mourning, her Sabbaths into reproach, her honor into contempt. As had been her glory, so was her dishonor increased, and her excellency was turned into mourning. This is him destroying the sanctuary, right? Casting down the sanctuary. Moreover, King Antiochus wrote to his whole kingdom that all should be one people, right? This is us being Hellenized, becoming Gentiles. Like when we read in Paul about the Gentiles that are allowed to come back, this is what we're talking about. When we get Hellenized and start living like Gentiles, right? Becoming Gentiles. It says, and everyone should leave his laws. So all the heathen agreed according to the commandment of the king. Yea, many also of the Israelites consented to his religion, and sacrificed unto idols, and profaned the Sabbath. For the king had sent letters by messengers unto Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, that they should follow the strange laws of the land, and what's this? And forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple, and that they should profane the Sabbaths and festival days, right? And pollute the sanctuary and holy people. So what did he do? It said, and forbid burnt offerings and sacrifice and drink offerings in the temple. So no more burnt offerings were allowed to take place. No more sacrifice, right? What did it say? It said, Daniel chapter 8, verse 11, yea, he magnified himself even to the prince of the host, and by him the daily sacrifice was taken away, and the place of his sanctuary was cast down, right? Defiled. Sanctuary defiled, sacrifices stopped. This is talking about Antiochus, right? First Maccabees chapter 1 verse 47, set up altars and groves and chapels of idols, and sacrifice swine's flesh and unclean beasts, that they should also leave their children uncircumcised, and make their souls abominable with all manner of uncleanness and profanation, to the end they might forget the law and change all the ordinances. And whosoever would not do according to the commandment of the king, he said he should die, right? So this is him having fierce countenance, right? Having no mercy. In the selfsame manner wrote he to his whole kingdom, and appointed overseers over all the people, commanding the cities of Judah to sacrifice city by city. Then many of the people were gathered unto them, to wit, every one that forsook the law, and so they committed evils in the land, and drove the Israelites into secret places, even wheresoever they could flee for succor. Now the 15th day of the month Caslu, in the 145th year, they set up the abomination of desolation upon the altar, and builded idol altars throughout the cities of Judah on every side, and burnt incense at the doors of their houses and in the streets. And when they had rent in pieces the books of the law which they found, they burnt them with fire, right? And wheresoever was found with any book of the testament, should that not say whosoever? Salakia. Or if any consented to the law, the king's commandment was that they should put him to death. Thus did they by their authority unto the Israelites every month, to as many as were found in the cities. Now the 25th day of the month they did sacrifice upon the idol altar, which was upon the altar of God. At which time, according to the commandment, they put to death certain women that had caused their children to be circumcised, and they hanged their infants about their necks, and rifled their houses, and slew them that had circumcised them. Howbeit many in Israel were fully resolved and confirmed in themselves not to eat any unclean thing, wherefore they chose rather to die, that they might not be defiled with meats, and that they might not profane the holy covenant. So then they died, and there was very great wrath upon Israel. Right? So just there, you see our valiant brothers and sisters who chose rather to die than to eat unclean things. And here you are eating it like it's a delicacy. That's a shameful thing, man. That's a very, 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 very shameful thing. Right? So we're going to close out with dealing with him being broken without hands. What does that mean? That's Antiochus' judgment, right? Let's end with a glimmer of hope. This is 2 Maccabees chapter 9. About that time came Antiochus with dishonor out of the country of Persia, for he had entered the city called Persepolis, and went about to rob the temple and to hold the city. Whereupon the multitude, running to defend themselves with their weapons, put them to flight. And so it happened that Antiochus, being put to flight, of the inhabitants returned with shame. So this is him going up against Persia and having to return with shame, right? Getting defeated, being put to flight. Now when he came to Ecbatane, news was brought him what had happened unto Nicanor and Timotheus. Then swelling with anger, he thought to avenge upon the Jews, right? So we all know about the destruction of Nicanor, right? Which Simon did. And so now Antiochus wants to get revenge, right? It says, then swelling with anger, he thought to avenge upon the Jews the disgrace done unto him by those that made him flee. Therefore commanded he his chariot man to drive without ceasing, and to dispatch the journey, the judgment of God now following him, for he had spoken proudly in this sort, that he would come to Jerusalem and make it a common burying place of the Jews, right? So because he's telling his chariot man to just go without ceasing, right? He's trying to get there quickly, and he wants to destroy Jerusalem. And because of this intention in his heart, the judgment of God is following him, right? It says, but the Lord Almighty, the God of Israel, smote him with an incurable and invisible plague, right? So he made him sick with a horrible plague, a horrible sickness. For as soon as he had spoken these words, a pain of the bowels that was remediless came upon him, and sore torments of the inner parts. So he was having internal pain in his bowels. So like a sore pain as soon as he spoke these prideful words about destroying Jerusalem. Right, it says, and that most justly, for he had tormented other men's bowels with many and strange torments. Howbeit, he nothing at all ceased from his bragging. So even though he's going through this, he still kept bragging and being prideful, right? He didn't cease. But still was filled with pride, breathing out fire in his rage against the Jews, and commanding to haste the journey. But it came to pass that he fell down from his chariot, carried violently, so that having a sore fall, all the members of his body were much pain. So he fell out of the chariot, and he was in complete pain. All the members of his body, he was just in full pain. His whole body in pain, right, because he carried on in his pride. And thus he that a little afore thought he might command the waves of the sea, so proud was he beyond the condition of man, and weigh the high mountains in a balance, was now cast on the ground and carried in an horse litter, shewing forth unto all the manifest power of God. So this man who thought that he was a god, thought he could command the waves and weigh the mountains, right, in high measure. This man that was so prideful to think that he was something special, something great, to think he was a god, he's now having to be carried around, right? Pathetic, right? Showing the manifest power of God. How you think you can magnify yourself like that, and now God's got you looking stupid, being carried around, right, in pain, right? So that the worms rose up out of the body. So he had worms coming out of his body. This man was rotting from the inside, right? So that the worms rose up out of the body of this wicked man, and whilst he lived in sorrow and pain, his flesh fell away. Right, so he was in pain and sorrow, and his flesh was falling off. He was rotting, until the filthiness of his smell was noisome to all his army. So his own army couldn't deal with how bad he smelled. He was starting to stink. And the man that thought a little afore he could reach to the stars of heaven, no man could endure to carry for his intolerable stink. So he smelt so bad, no one could even go near him to carry him. His army couldn't deal with the stench. Here therefore, being plagued, he began to leave off his great pride. So now he's being humbled, and to come to the knowledge of himself by the scourge of God, his pain increasing every moment. And when he himself could not abide his own smell, he said these words, it is meet to be subject unto God, and that a man that is mortal should not proudly think of himself as if he were God. This wicked person vowed also unto the Lord, who now no more would have mercy upon him, saying thus, that the holy city to the which he was going to in haste, to lay it even with the ground, and to make it a common burying place, he would set at liberty. Right, so now he's getting He's trying to repent. He's got that deathbed repentance. He's saying, "Oh no, I'll set Israel free, right? I'll set Jerusalem free." And as touching the Jews whom he had judged not worthy, right now he's understanding that he's not a god, right? So much as to be buried, but to be cast. I interrupted myself. And as touching the Jews whom he had judged not worthy to be so much as to be buried, but to be cast out with their children to be devoured of the fowls and wild beasts, he would make them all equals to the citizens of Athens. So he's saying, oh, I'll make them even equal with citizens of Athens. Citizens of Athens had special privilege, right? These tributary cities like Jerusalem did not, right? So he's saying that he'll set them free and let them be on that same level of privilege, right? And the holy temple, which before he had spoiled, he would garnish with goodly gifts and restore all the holy vessels with many more, and out of his own revenue defray the charges belonging to the sacrifices, right? So he'd pay for all the beasts and everything, and he'd pay for everything, and he'd put everything back in the temple and set it up glorious again, right? And what's this? Yea, and that also he would become a Jew himself, as in he'd start keeping the laws, and go through all the world that was inhabited and declare the power of God. So he was willing to go around preaching the power of God, right? But what's this? But for all this, his pains would not cease, for the just judgment of God was come upon him. Therefore, despairing of his health, he wrote unto the Jews the letter underwritten, containing the form of a supplication after this manner. Right, I'm not going to read the letter. But he was now, even though he was trying to say all these things, trying to go back on everything, it's too late. The judgment of God is on you and you're finished, right? Especially because you're an Edomite, bro. You're not getting repentance. It tells you that in Hebrews, right? Right, and then he goes on to die, right? He goes on to die. So that's him being destroyed without hands. So that's Daniel chapter 8, touching Antiochus. Lord willing, someone was edified, and with that, we're going to give Kal Halal La Yahweh, Bahasham Hamashiach Yahweh Shai, Shalom.